feel like the time has come for me to discuss Excalibur and to explain, one, why it is important for us, two, what it will give to you, and three, how we can use it to go forward and create this new earth to which its magical formula is discussed in detail throughout. Basically, this book consists of a few parts. The first part of it, I included my own Qabalah key in order to help you through the read of it. Most of the Book of the Law is written in code and number cipher, and therefore a Kabbalistic understanding of numbers and those meanings is really integral to unlocking the psychological states and powers that are dormant within you right now, that will give you the freedom that you're looking for, that will give you the ability to use these formulas and actually make significant changes in your life. Now, the Book of the Law is broken down into 3 chapters. The first chapter is spoken from the perspective of Nuit, which is the infinite potential in extension. Now, Nuit in this chapter explains to us the infinite nature of each of us. Every man and every woman is a star. Therefore, throughout this chapter, it is discussed in detail as to what that means exactly for us. What is our infinite nature? How is that expressed? And through it, we learn that our true state of being is that of joy and bliss. It's not the pain and suffering that we've been conditioned and taught to believe that resulted from what are called the dying God formulas. For example, like Buddhism's first postulate in the Four Noble Truths is that life is suffering. The fact is this is a misapprehension of the reality. Life is not suffering if we live within our true being. If we live as the infinite motion in extension, then the only thing that can actually occur is bliss and harmony. And this is the whole point of the second chapter of the book, spoken from the perspective of Hadit. Hadit is that motion as it extends into matter to make a sacred marriage with the infinite, the marriage of Hadit and Nuit, which expresses itself as an event. Now, what this teaches us is that Hadit, specifically, is the entire motion of the universe, of everything. And that's what we are truly. We're not beings, we're not nouns, we're not people, we're not our bodies. We're this entire motion that began, if you want, from the Big Bang and carries forward into like right now. These words that I'm speaking are expressions of Hadit. The feelings you're feeling when you watch the video are expressions of Hadit. The way that you feel motivated to move, these are all manifestations of Hadit, which move towards your true will, which is your purpose on this planet. Now, the will has been a term that has largely been, demonized, really. A lot for the fact that, like, Hitler, kind of used that as his main motto, the triumph of the will, which came from Nietzsche. But the fact is this will is just the motion of all beings, and those who follow that will are given the entire power of the universe at their back. Therefore, in the example of Hitler used that will, which then incited the collective will of everybody else across the world to stop him. And the importance in that was that collective will that rose against him is what was the true awakening of those people that were lying dormant in that Aeon of Osiris. It was the part that really stirred everything into motion there. And because of this, it's like the will since then has been something that's really been, looked down on. We associate it with a bunch of negative connotations, but all that's talking about is just your true orbit, the truth of who you are, the reality of who you are. Now, the third part of the Book of the Law discusses Rahor Kuwit, or the event, the occurrence or manifestation of when Hadit meets Nuit and what's created. And this discusses our manifestations through magic, our manifestations into the world. Now, in this chapter, we learn that it is through uniting ourselves to, our true self, to the God part of each of us, to that motion, and extending that into matter that exalts us from a form of slave consciousness into that of God consciousness. Therefore, throughout the occult teachings and everything, the most focus is on the path of return. There's two different motions. There's motion of all, which is the motion of, the extension into matter, and then there's the motion of La. So Allah is the combination of both extension and return. The formula in the last Aeon, especially with Christ, with Buddha, and with all these other beings, was to return back to source, to go away from the body, away from the earth, to look to heaven above that of our life here right now. Therefore, all the religions of the last few thousand years have focused on this earth being a sort of prison, the body being a prison, the enemy of the soul. But this isn't true at all, because the body is actually just the vehicle in which the soul expresses itself. Therefore, the Book of the Law, which in its secret of the cipher key 93 is 31 3 times. All and La in the Qabalah both relate to 31. Thus we have Allah all and La Allah. Now La all, or Allah all, for example, shows both, really the combination of all three eons. It shows our extension into these bodies as human beings, the realization of this earth and the importance of our physical life. The La, the second part, then takes us all the way back into our unification with the self, with the Atman, our true being, the realization that we are the infinite expressed at all times. And then the final all brings us back into the body, back into this world to actually do our work, which is the entire purpose of the Book of the Law, is that it unlocks these formulas and unlocks these expressions and these motions within us that we can basically fulfill the real reason that we came here on this planet. And through fulfilling this purpose, this orbit, this will, we bring ourselves back into equilibrium with the entirety of the universe, and we make ourselves one with the divine. Now, the most important chapter, I feel like, in Excalibur is chapter 583, which is the unveiling of Aleister. In this chapter, after we've established these different formulas and these different directions, I discuss how the formula of Rahor Kuwait can be utilized right now in our time by tracing history all the way back from the birth of the cosmos through, the primordial man in the Upper Paleolithic period to the beginning of society and to the establishment of agriculture and civilization and religions and god forms and rituals and rites, and bring that all the way forward to right now, so that we can see that entire eternal motion that exists as Hadith, which we are still a part of, is continuing to propel humanity forward. Thus, in seeing ourselves as the entirety of this, the entirety of the Big Bang onward, we are the process of the universe continually unveiling itself. And by bringing that into our bodies, into this world, and realizing that this world right here, this physical world, is the entire manifestation of that divine. And by bringing this unification with the self back here into our bodies and treating everything in our environment as though it is the abode of God, because it is, and treating the Earth Mother as our sacred temple, and treating every being we meet as another reflection of that divine. In that, we are able to regenerate this world, because this changes the perspective in which you approach your life. It changes everything about your environment as you see it as the manifestation of your divine being. You see directly what you're creating. The trash on the street is a reflection of you and a reflection of me and a reflection of everybody else here. All the problems in this world are reflections of us, and therefore, because we created it, we also have the power to change it into anything that we want, anything at all. Ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, all these great civilizations merely realized that their environment was the reflection of them. When they built these temples to the gods, they were building temples to their honor of the divine within themselves. And their environments reflected the inner world of who they were. Now, as we look around our modern society, we don't see that in the same way. In fact, our modern society looks rather terrible for the most part. I am in Vietnam right now. I've now been to 58 countries, and everywhere I've been in this entire world, it looks pretty devastating. And the conditions of the environment continue to deteriorate. And things, as they're going right now, do look bleak. But the important part of all of this is that we realize we can change it. And by uniting with the self, uniting with that divine in us, with the infinite motion that we are, living from our bliss and expressing exactly according to that, living in direct alignment with our will, never suspending the motion of who we are for any reason whatsoever. This includes your job, this includes your parents, this includes your religion, your education, everything that could possibly suspend the motion and the expression of your actual self is therefore the enemy of that divine nature within you. You can no longer go against that, however slight it is. And you'll find that the more refined and the more devoted you become to this motion and the expression of this motion, the more things will come into the surface. And when this happens, you are able to go into even deeper and deeper levels of clearing yourself out, preparing your vessel as a clear vessel to express, the infinite. In the final chapter of Excalibur, I discuss the book of Revelation and go into all of the spells of that book and how they relate to our manifestation right now. The book of Revelation is really something that has haunted our psyches for a very long time, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. The end of the world scenarios, all of this that have been painted and projected outward onto the world at large, we see very clearly. Therefore, as this last chapter, my aim was to really get to the root of what this is all about, what the book of Revelation really is. What perspective was it written from, and why was it written? And through doing that, I feel I was able to truly unravel these spells in order that we can move forward and create, a future for our race, a future for our children, for everybody. And, this is the basis of my entire work. And I call it Gaia-ledra, which to me is the exaltation of the earth. It's bringing Gaia and exalting her from this, poor slave state of her, dying and disease to truly being the manifestation of God here, the marriage of heaven and earth here, right now. And that's the entire aim of my work. It's everything that I wish to do. It's the ultimate liberation of you and yourself in order for you to fulfill your purpose, and the regeneration of the earth to reflect our true nature. And I know we can do this. And I really feel that it's important that you read this book, because it's going to open things for you that you never knew were possible. Whether you're well acquainted with Crowley's work or whether you're brand new to it, it really will meet you wherever you're at. And it's written in such a way that these energies will be unlocked within you and start to take form and shape in your own life. And you'll witness the differences and the changes going on as you experience it. The way that it changes your point of view, the way that it changes your life, the way that it brings magic and wonder back into every second of your existence. And that's really the beauty of this book and why I wrote it. It was pulled out of me with a real just burst of energy. I couldn't stop it. And nor did I want to stop it. But to me, it's the entire manifestation of it has truly been miraculous. And I'm excited to share it with you. I put my whole heart and soul into it, and all of my love and all of my knowledge and soul force. And my one wish is that you may manifest the full realization of your own divine will.